Hello and welcome back to My Life in Film, and this time we've hit the year 2000. It's been a great start for this series and we've still got probably about 20 years to go. Let's use basic maths for that one. So without further ado, we are back to 25 films that I enjoyed through my life from the year 2000. 25 is Coyote Ugly. This was one of those movies that just hit the mark at the right time for me. It was one of the films that first got me really into the idea of New York City and the options of just taking a chance and following a dream. And while this is never going to be my dream, a singer in a bar or a singer, it's something that just gives you the inspiration to try something risque, if you like to use that term. 24 is Ginger Snaps. Yes, a werewolf movie is very hard to do, and this is one that hits the mark perfectly. It does do all the basics of a horror movie really well, creating the idea of sisters who one is turning into a werewolf, the other one's trying to save her. And again, it's one that sticks in the memory, which is very good for a werewolf movie because a lot of them are just bad. 23 is Requiem for a Dream. This is the one movie that you will never want to watch twice because it is so disturbing and emotionally draining, you'll never recover from watching it properly. It is about 4 addicts who go in different directions in life to fulfill their scores as such. And in this one we get to see just how far they have to go to get what they need, which will be devastating on all of their lives. Number 22 is Scary Movie. Yeah, it's a weird one, this one, but I'd only really ever seen what you would call the popcorn horror movies at this time, and this is one movie that really did take the piss out of them quite well, with doing everything in the right way, mainly taking the piss out of Scream, which was already slightly more of a horror comedy than most horror movies, but it didn't really hold back, and at the time this one worked really well before the series turned into a toilet mess. 21 is American Psycho. This thriller, yes, I'm calling it a thriller, it's not a horror movie, follows Patrick Bateman as he sees his life turn into a serial killer in his mind. And we're not quite sure if it's real or not, but he just thinks that his status in the elite can get away with anything. And Christian Bale absolutely bursts onto the scene as an adult actor in this role. Scream 3. This is widely considered the weakest of the Scream, but I actually quite enjoy Scream 3 more than most. I like the idea of the horror movie going on while they're making the horror movie about the horror movie. That sounds complicated, but we have actors who are playing the stars of the movie, and just seeing how they all get picked off. There's a lot of Hollywood references through this one, and there's a very clever, slightly disturbing reference to certain things that happen in the casting studio, which really seems to hit hard in this movie that you really don't see it coming. My Dog Skippy is in at 19, yes. A movie about a boy and his dog. Yes, well, as a dog lover, this one was one of the ones that really hit home. I always had small dogs in my life, and this one sums up what the relationship with a dog would be. And again, Frankie Muniz was on top of the world with Malcolm in the Middle at this time, and the dog and him's relationship is so believable. And you'll cry at the end. 18 is Space Cowboys. When it comes to space movies, I do like astronaut-like movies. None of the way over the top ones, a natural feeling. Space exploration, if you like. And this one looks at having to turn to 4 veteran astronauts to go on the latest mission because they're the only ones who know how to survive it, and plays out a bit of comedy about how they have to go through the tests, but again, with this cast, you don't get anything wrong. 17 is Loser. I was going through the teen movie phase at this time, and you add in the fact that that one Wheatus song that's somewhere everywhere, you've got this movie perfectly set up for you. Jason Biggs really was on top of the world for the teen genre at the time, and Mena Suvari joined him, shall we say, in the American Pie reunion, if you would like to call it that. For me, this one is one that just sort of works really well. It shows how difficult going to college would be, especially after being so successful at school. And if you don't click at college, how much difficult it will be when you're on the other side of the country. I like this movie. I'm not going to say it's a classic, but it's quite fun. Final Destination brought us a brand new era of horror. The idea that death itself would come for you. There is no demon. There is nothing you can do to avoid this other than watch out for signs, but you'll know it'll get you eventually. And this was the birth of a franchise which went wacky after a while, but for the first one, it really kept everything very simple. Has one of the funniest blink and you miss it deaths. And again, it's one that really changed what we were going to anticipate for horror, because there was no villain you could fight. It was literally death itself. So the biggest ones I haven't seen is Dancer in the Dark. Again, I'm going from what's the most popular on Letterboxd, so that's apparently the most popular one. Miss Congeniality and Yi Yi Yi. No idea what that was about either, but I haven't seen them. I will have to start changing this. Number 15 is Pay It Forward. Right after Sixth Sense, Haley Joel Osment was on top of the world, and in this movie he tries to think of a way that could help change the world for the better, doing a favour for someone and then everybody else doing 3 favours for that person, or that person doing 3 favours for 3 more people, and you could imagine how much that could help change the world for the better. And it just shows how an idealistic young child could take a simple school project and build on it to new levels. Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's a fantastic idea. Number 4 is Ready to Rumble. Yes, this one did make the list. I can't really say why, but it is a completely bonkers movie about wrestling. Yes, as the wrestling fan I am, this movie just seemed to understand the fact that wrestling is a bit bonkers and gets away with everything it does that's bonkers. If you do not like wrestling, you will not like this movie. But for me, it was funny as it goes. So definitely one for wrestling fans to enjoy the bonkersness of it. Number 13 is Boys and Girls, another one of these teen, early college era movies with Jason Biggs, only in a supporting role this time. And this one is all about the idea of whether boys and girls could be friends or not. And we follow Freddie Prinze Jr. and Claire Forlani through this movie, and sadly enough, it's one I've probably watched the most of all of the teen movies. I did seem to get very attached to this movie because the conversation was very interesting to see how everything would unfold. So for me, it's one of the ones no one really talks about in the genre either, so I enjoy it probably because no one else did. Number 12 is Dude, Where's My Car? Yeah. It was a weird year, the year 2000, wasn't it? And for me, some of the movies I liked would never make a top list anywhere anymore. I've said before, I don't usually like comedies. This year I just seemed to find a lot funny, and this was one. Ashton Kutcher and Seann William Scott were actually brilliant together, and it's one that I'm glad they've never tried to do a sequel for, because it would never click with the same magic it had back then. 11 is Castaway. You leave Tom Hanks on an island with a beach ball for 2.5 hours, and you end up getting an Oscar-nominated movie. Do I need to say much more about this movie? It just shows how good Mr. Hanks truly is in the industry. Films I didn't enjoy. Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Yeah, I've said it before in a few other videos. I'm not the biggest Coen Brother fan. I either love the movie or think it's meh. So that's one of them. Empire's New Groove is an animated movie I just didn't really enjoy. And Traffic, I'm not really into the whole drug gang related material movies anyway, so this one just didn't really work for me either. So we're into the top 10. Shanghai Noon. Yes, I did like Jackie Chan movies, and I do like Owen Wilson's comedy in Jackie Chan movies. I think they worked very well together, because Owen Wilson, a bit like what Chris Tucker did in Rush Hour, they talk too much and let Jackie Chan do all of the action. And putting in a cowboy and western era, it really did work very well. Number 9 is Unbreakable, with M. Night's follow-up to The Sixth Sense. We get the alternative superhero movie, where one man is involved in a train crash and has no injuries. And he has to figure out, has he ever been sick or injured in his life? And the truth will leave him shocked. It's a very, very clever movie because it doesn't glorify superheroism, which is one of the complaints, shall we say, that's in the modern era cinema. They're very big with their battles instead of just showing somebody doing something very simple to help, which is what Unbreakable gave us. Talking of that, I ended up putting X-Men at number 8. The very first of the X-Men movies that somehow brought to life the characters from TV, animated world, and it sort of worked. Like, the casting was great for Patrick Stewart, Ian McKellen, Hugh Jackman, especially when he broke through role with this. Again, it's just like the introduction to the characters that we're going to be seeing for years to come. The villains are a bit weak around Ian McKellen, but otherwise it was just what we needed to get things going in this genre. Number 7 is Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, one of the most beautiful martial arts movies you're ever going to see. It will leave you just wanting to see more. Sadly, you don't want to see more because the sequel's not anywhere near as good, but this movie is just something different. We hadn't seen this in the mainstream cinema before, and we're so glad to get the opportunity to. Number 6 is Mission to Mars. Remember how I said I like space movies? Well, this one was one of those movies that really hit home for me. A very simple idea of trying to find a lost mission on Mars, and it goes deeper into the philosophy of everything that goes on with what could have been on Mars and around Mars. And we have a fantastic cast. It's one not many people talk about, and it's one I just really enjoyed for the era and can still enjoy now. Number 5 is The Cell. This is one of the most disturbing thrillers you'll ever get to see, and it follows a detective who has to hire a woman who goes into people's dreams, or coma victims' dreams, to help basically try and get them out and learn stuff about them. The only problem is she has to go into the mind of a twisted serial killer who has his latest victim waiting and on like a timed death position so he can complete his sadomasochistic fantasies on her. And again, the worlds that are created are amazing in this dream world. It was a movie that was way before its time for what it was trying to push the boundaries for, and again, it's another one with an awful sequel. Number 4 is Gone in 60 Seconds. Brum brum cars, lots of driving. You know me, I like wild action movies. I say it every video, and this was one of Nicolas Cage's last before he fell off that action star radar. And again, a wonderful cast, a nice ensemble cast. Look, if you like cars, probably I don't, but you're going to have some sort of like car fantasy with what we see in this movie. Number 3 is The Dish. We're back to space again. The Dish follows how the Australian satellite had to pick up the Apollo 11 mission to transport it back to America so they could have live footage of the landing, and we see how things could go wrong and might have gone wrong, and how they had to fix things at the spur of the moment. And Sam Neill takes the lead role in this movie, and he is brilliant. If you ever get the chance to see this movie and you like Apollo 11's stories, this would be a lovely double header with anything going on around that movie. It's told in such a comical but not silly comedy way, and it's a place you could go and visit one day just to see how amazing to think that this random dish in the middle of the outback in Australia could have been the thing that gave us the footage that will live long in man's history. Number 2 is Battle Royale. Yeah, we've gone for another one of these movies that everyone knows, everyone likes, and it is way over the top. It follows a group of school kids who are told they have to kill each other to get off this island. So basically the Hunger Games, but interesting. Again, we have some of the wackiest, most demented scenes you're ever going to see, and it's right up there with some that will haunt you for years to come. And number one is the strangest number one so far is Pitch Black. Pitch Black follows a transportation ship that crash lands on a planet with 3 suns, which doesn't seem like a bad thing until the sun goes down, and in the shadows the monsters come out, and basically they have to fight to survive with hordes of different type of creatures, and one of the criminals they are transporting can see in the dark, and it's whether he will or won't help them to survive this land. It was very different, this movie, when it first came out. I'm going to have to say, it's probably Vin Diesel's best little franchise, because the character Riddick is so interesting compared to Dom in the Fast and Furious. What we see with this movie really helped change like the darkness of space horror. It isn't just like an alien movie and a tight like spacecraft. It's on a whole planet. Imagine like Journey to Center of the Earth, but on a whole planet where there is no like easy escape. And that's what we get with this movie. One I really did enjoy, and it is why it is number one. So tell me what your favourite movies from the year 2000 are, and tell me what you think of my list. I know everyone's going to hate it because there are some big movies missing on that one. But again, it's what I enjoy, not what necessarily I think is the best. So thank you all for watching, and until next time, we'll be back again, I hope.